She posted it on Reddit. She didn't post it on Twitter or anything. They got put up on Twitter by somebody who transcribed it. And then I put, it's crazy that Ms. Rachel, a children's entertainer, has done a better job of speaking up for Palestinians than many liberal and progressive political creators. And Hutch responds, what's your specific problem with her post? And you put, and I said, there are a few points Contrapoints makes that I agree on, which, and I've read the statement, I stand by that. But
That's not
overall,
gonna
it
happen.
reads
I
to
don't
me
think
like a
so.
long-winded
I think that's a
rationalization
pipe
for an
dream.
action that's framed as moral nuance. She acknowledges the ongoing genocide and has donated to Palestinian causes, which is more than many and commendable, but devotes more energy distancing herself from those participating in said genocide, or from those protesting said genocide, than from those supporting it, tacitly or otherwise. And then we agreed to this conversation. So
Mhm.
I don't know. How'd you feel about my criticism? And you can give me your thoughts more broadly on what you thought.
Oh my god, dude, Straighter Aid, dude, not only is she cringe and horrible as a person when it comes to no one pays for them anyway, that kind of explains it. But I just want to say, in addition to Straighter Aid being known as like the great betrayer, all right, like she like just straight up betrays literally everybody. Like I don't know if there's one group of people that she doesn't betray, right? But the fact that she betrays everyone who consider her a close friend or whatever, and now she's left with nobody, except for maybe Present Sunday, is crazy. Like that is unhinged to me. Okay, but yeah, like fuck. In addition to being the great betrayer, she also has cringe views, so which makes her doubly unlikable. Okay.
Of Contrapoints' statement.
I think the problem that I'm seeing in terms of the reactions, I think your premise about what Contra was saying is not accurate. Like, I think a lot of people read her statement and they interpreted it to mean that she was saying don't do any activism, but that wasn't what she was saying. She was explaining why her specific platform on YouTube, which is videos presented in a normally kind of whimsical, playful, satirical, comedic way, wasn't it that this topic wasn't a good fit for that particular platform. And she then went into great detail in a post that should take maybe 2-3 minutes to react or to read. So I didn't feel like it was super long-winded. I mean, this was a very quick read for me. But I think your framing is just all off. Like, she's not telling people don't do activism.
Do you think it's possible for somebody to, like, for people to kind of pick up on a connotation and that ends up being more specific than the literal denotation of what somebody says?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So if you're saying that maybe she should have articulated herself better, then we can get into that. But like when I read her,
no, because just because you said that, you know, people were straw manning her and saying that she's discouraging people from action. That's why I said, like, I think it rationalizes inaction, because is there anywhere in it where she says, do not do a thing, do not speak up for Palestinians, don't protest? No, those words never appear anywhere in it. But I think the framing, when it kicks off in framing that I don't know if she's, I don't believe that she's intending to trivialize criticism, but I wasn't seeing, and I'm not Contrapoint, so, you know, I'll defer to her, that maybe she saw more people requesting that she make a video on it. I didn't see that. I saw people just making the request, like, why haven't you spoken out more about it since, or why don't you use any of your, like, multiple platforms to kind of speak up for Palestinians if that's how you feel.
Well, the opening
starts off from like a criticism that I almost think is like a false premise, but then also, like, even if she literally never says don't do this activism, it's possible for it to have like a kind of like a depressing or like almost a demotivating thing, because I have to assume that, you know, Contra acts in a way, like, if Contrapoints feels that she herself needs to be very cautious in the type of protesting that she engages in surrounding this topic, then you're implicitly suggesting to people who agree with you, you should also, and even those who disagree with you, you should be more willing to be, you should be more cautious as well. And I think that's what people mean when they say it. That's certainly what I mean when I say it ends up justifying inaction.
So the very opening sentence of her post is, so many leftists feel betrayed because I haven't made a video on Palestine. So she's opening it by very clearly identifying this specific platform.
But I saw it on Twitter. Like, I saw people responding to her on Twitter. That's why I'm saying I didn't see people saying, why don't you make a video on it? I saw them saying, why don't you just use your platform to speak more? But she has multiple platforms, because she has Twitter, she has Patreon, she has YouTube, she has like lots of different things at her disposal to reach out to people.
Leftists are like retarded children, dude. like it's okay. You know how like when the kid freaks out when they aren't allowed a cookie, you know how like kids just throw temper tantrums all the time? It's more like afterwards the kids find like a justified reason post hoc rationalization for their horrible actions, right? Like leftists were already acting unhinged and doxing people and doing all that crazy shit, right? But now they have a valid reason to go as now they think they have a valid reason to go as far as possible without any consequences, right? Because you can like the thing is that it's one thing to do crazy shit, but now you can go like, well, you don't understand, it's a genocide, we're justified in doing whatever action that we choose, right? Oh, you don't understand, because it's a genocide, the worst crime ever, anything that is done to prevent such a crime is justified in our books, right? So it literally just post ad hoc justifies every single bad action that they do, right? When in actuality they've been doing all this thing all along, but with no good excuses beforehand, right? But yeah, I don't like counterpoints. Why her? So you mean contrapoints, right? Not counterpoints. Why her for a Palestine video? Well, because she just has a large platform and she's regarded as like the queen of breadtube for like the longest time, you know? But yeah, I mean that's probably why they wanted her to talk, because she has a voice of authority, right?
Right.
Okay.
Like I don't know where people, personally I would enjoy seeing her pour milk on a mannequin of Bibi Netanyahu. That's just me. But
I mean, same,
think
but
that, like,
yeah.
people were expecting like a bathtub video or any of that.
Well, she's addressing that particular criticism. So like the point of this post is not to get into the complexities of Israel Palestine or unpack the conflict or set up the dynamic in any, like the point of her post very explicitly, as it's laid out in the very first sentence, is addressing a particular criticism that I suspect she sees in her Reddit posts or on her Twitter replies, and so she's responding to those specific people. And I think other people, maybe who this didn't even apply to, misinterpreted her post altogether to mean or to suggest that she was telling them to not do any activism. But there's nothing even remotely hinting that in her post. Like nothing, literally not a single thing. What she was drawing an issue with was a particular kind of activism that mandated anti-Zionism as a part of a necessary component of Palestinian advocacy. So like I watched a Vanguard video yesterday where they were discussing the Contrapoints posts, and they said, for example, you cannot be an advocate for Palestinians if you don't believe in a one-state solution. So she's speaking to this exact kind of insistence or mandate. And I think her observations were just like self-evidently correct. So like by doing that, by saying that if you want to be a part of our coalition, if you want to be a part of our activist movement, you need to advocate for basically to dissolve the current government structure of Israel and replace it with a single state full right of return, which she goes into detail about why that's completely infeasible. So I'm just not seeing that same issue that you're seeing in the context of everything she wrote. I did not get her at all saying don't do activism.
If you say that the current strategies that have been employed now have meant that 0 Palestinian lives have been saved, not one fewer bomb or bullets was like deployed, and it also may have.
Yeah, but I don't know if Hutch can get together with Destiny at this point, because Hutch is openly like associating himself with Straighter Raid, okay? And Straighter Raid is like big no zone. I honestly don't know. With that being said, yeah, Hutch is based, but I think, dude, honestly, you know what I think? I think that people should learn how to grow their own without Destiny, okay? I think people have relied on Destiny to give them careers for too long, okay? The handouts need to stop, okay? The handouts need to fucking stop, all right? I think people need to learn how to, like, grow their own, okay? Stop being fucking leeches.
Slightly contributed to the re-election of Trump, guaranteeing that the U.S.
And besides, they're far more entertaining and far more natural and far more whatever when they're not like clones of Destiny, right? I don't want people to be clones of Destiny. How boring would that be? The fuck? You're already watching me. Like people literally already call me a clone of Destiny, right? Fuck me, dude. Yeah. I want the YouTube that isn't just a bunch of Destiny clones.
So
running
put no
around in
diplomatic
my
pressure on
sphere.
Netanyahu for at least 4 years, making protests against Israel both more riskier and less effective.
That's
What
right.
she is calling people to do is reflect on the types of tactics and strategies and protests that they have engaged in since,
Yeah.
and saying like maybe it was completely ineffective. So I do think that it's not just a critique that she's saying like, oh, be open to considering this. I thought she was pretty much suggesting that like the things that have been done now, not only was it like not helpful, it may have actually hurt. So
Yeah.
how is that not her saying that like maybe you shouldn't protest in this
she's
specific
right.
way, right?
Well, no,
I mean,
but that's different
right.
though.
Feel that like that's not the way to do it.
No, but that's different though. If she's saying if she's saying protesting in this specific way was worse than unproductive, it was counterproductive. She's talking about a specific critique. She's not saying broadly don't do any kind of activism or contribute money to direct aid organizations or charities that benefit Palestinians. She's not saying to engage in activism. She's talking about a very specific critique, right?
I guess having a criticism like this and not following it up with like, here's what you ought to do instead, or kind of like, it's like, I would never like tell someone and not show them, you know? Like if I had a criticism of somebody and I'd be like, you should not do this, I would also follow it up with, this is how you should do it instead, because this is a way that you can get people on board with your movement. This is a better alternative to what you're currently doing. I personally wouldn't leave them with just like, here's the criticism, do with it what you will. You know, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to tell you what not to do. It's always going to lead people to make uncharitable assumptions because it's like, you don't like what I'm doing. You don't provide an alternative. So I'm just going to assume what you've said has been the reaction. So that's one part of it. But then another part of it is like, well, give me your thoughts on that. Like, do you think my assessment of that is like off base, I guess?
Let me think about that part a second.
It's not off base, but I feel like the main reason why you dislike not Destiny, fuck it. The main reason why you don't like Contrapoints post is because she didn't call it, like she didn't condemn it hard enough. That's why, right? I think the reason why you don't like Contrapoints post is because she didn't make it exactly as to your liking or to Hassan's narrative, right? Because I think what she's expecting is like this full condemnation of the Zionist state, to deny the rapes, to you know, absolute, to like just fucking deny everything, deny, right? And to do Hassan dialogue, but I don't think it's reasonable to like fuck that. Like again, the main reason why you have a problem with it is probably not because of that shit, you know. That's it. Yeah. The handouts after 7, that means the anti-fans mowing down dipshit new orders. Base meme.
Well, there's like a couple things here. Like, I don't think she needs to necessarily go into detail about like what a particular kind of activism should look like, because I think that's really broad. I think like you can do all kinds of activism.
You should not leak private details from your friends to President Sunday, by the way. Yeah, I'm not straight arrayed. Don't worry.
That doesn't revolve around demanding a one-state solution. But I think an equally important part of her post was setting up the reality that, and this is just going to be something that makes people upset, I understand it, but she's telling the truth. When she says that it was politically infeasible to expect that there was a lane or a path or any kind of mechanism to pressure government to stop sending them arms, she's saying that that was impossible. I know that people might hear that and they're going to get very upset. I understand why that anger. Nobody wants to see violence like this unfold daily, with hundreds of videos every day of just like unspeakable violence. And nobody wants to be confronted with that and be told there's really not much that you can do to stop that right now. But she was telling the truth when she says it was politically infeasible. The Republic, I mean, like, let's just grant that it was possible to convince Democrats to go along with this. Let's say we can convince Joe Biden to not be a principled Zionist and not be someone who is looking to continue our decades-long diplomatic alliance with this country. And let's say he was open to discontinuing arms sales and aid packages to Israel. You know who else you have to go through in that spot are Republicans. Like, the Republicans held the House at that point in 2023. There was Mike Johnson was the speaker shortly after October 7th. kicked off. And so if you wanted to set as a goal like pressuring the government to stop sending them arms, like what you're saying is the job would have been to convince Mike Johnson to do this. This is just an obvious non-starter. Like that just was never ever going to happen. And so there's
Why don't we, dude? I swear to God, leftists are like a fucking Chinese psyop, okay? Because can anyone tell me why the fuck they only protest like genocide shit at like liberal fucking speeches and shit, and leftist speeches and Bernie Sanders and shit, but it's never the Republicans when they are the ones in power. They're the ones that actually have the decision making, dude. Like, lest we forget, right? Like, fuck, who, like, that's just absolutely mind blowing to me. Okay, like actually unhinged shit to me, in my opinion. Okay, but you know, who am I? Who am I to say about this? Is the least risk and least amount of resistance? Yeah, exactly. It's coward. It's like these cowards. They're just a bunch of cowards.
There's a couple things here. Like, yeah, like she's right. It was kind of hopeless, and it is kind of hopeless right now. And she's right that doing one state solution only type thing necessarily excludes like 95% of the country.
I think that I guess my issue with it is that she kind of treats U.S. complicity as like this unchangeable fact. I hear you kind of, I guess, feel this way, but that is an ongoing, that's a choice that's being made, right? These are all policy choices and decisions. And I'm not saying that reversing them is something that could happen overnight or easily, but I don't know. She seems just like resigned that like to the inevitability of the like U.S. material support to Israel into perpetuity, or into the very least like several years from now.
I don't think she's saying that though.
To, like, accept like the Israeli brutality, like you can't really change these circumstances, even though we were seeing shifts in public opinion, and Biden was obviously posturing towards pandering to that because he started changing his rhetoric to like, I'm working day and night for a ceasefire, even when his actions didn't always entirely align with that stated goal.
Well, they did help negotiate multiple ceasefires.
Messaging because he could see that the Democratic base was not as gung-ho about just kind of
she's just talking past
critically backing Israel as maybe they had, as they not maybe, but they had been in previous like conflicts between Israel and Gaza and Palestine or whatever. I don't know, like I don't see that to me as like, oh, she's just being realistic. I feel like she's being fatalistic, and she kind of dresses it up as like, this is me being pragmatic, but to me it's like, I don't think that what does Congress have to do with the United States vetoing Security Council resolutions at the UN? Last time I checked, Joe Biden doesn't need to get every statement that he makes approved by Congress. He can make statements condemning Israel. He can make statements expressing opposition or distaste or displeasure at what he's doing.
No, Biden was the Biden administration and Biden himself were partly culpable. I'm not suggesting that they weren't. But the UN votes are largely symbolic that don't really amount to anything. So that wouldn't have changed anything. But like,
we're a permanent member.
Well,
UN.
So I think like a lot of these are just like measures condemning Israel, right? Like, what does that actually amount to?
The Security Council resolutions are more than just like performative or whatever. So there's
yes, who's feed us the shitty lefty takes? Me having lefty takes? Who do you think you're talking to?
There's two different types of resolutions that can be passed, but the Security Council ones are actually serious, and they do have like weight behind them. And when the United States backs something, that's not just like a virtue signal. Like I can understand if it's like.
Okay, I take your point. I take your point on that. But like, I want to unpack what you said though.
Whatever. It's like, it's true about Congress, but it ignores that there are other mechanisms that the United States has to put pressure on Israel that absolutely could have been used.
But before we even get to that though, she actually didn't say that it would be impossible to change the sort of congressional makeup. She didn't.
Because it's insane to ask for an American Democrat or Republican to disavow a country we back in lieu of terrorist riddled countries to attack us whenever they can. Also, isn't it just kind of a shitty thing to just betray a country that you are like allied with? I think it's just way better to try to negotiate some kind of like deal, which is what, according to Hutch, what Biden did, right? Biden like tried to negotiate ceasefires, right? Isn't that what Hutch did? I'm assuming that's true. Okay, I'm too lazy to double check. I'm just gonna assume that's true. Okay, fuck you. I'm doing lefty levels of double checking. Okay, AK, I'm not double checking. Fuck that shit. Okay.
Say that it was impossible to change the congressional makeup to one that has way more people that are willing to vote for something like an arms embargo. What she said was that something like that would necessarily take years, and she's correct about that. Like, the UN can do this or that resolution, and Biden can pause shipments in accordance with law. But he did not have the unilateral authority to halt shipments altogether. That would have had to have come from a bill from Congress. And so, I think it's counterintuitive, and it works against people's sense of, like, I think especially when you're young, when you're young and you're getting involved in politics, you take a look at historical examples of successful civil rights movements or liberation movements, revolutionary struggles, and you want to think that at any given point, you can accomplish anything with your activist movement. You can change any kind of situation so long as you just have the sufficient energy and willpower and passion to do it. But at some point, if you want to say that she's incorrect about what she's saying, you're going to have to make the case to me to how you could have convinced Mike Johnson to stop sending aid to Israel. And that touches on another thing that she touched on, which is that when the leftist Palestinian activists were talking about this issue in 2024, they were only talking about the Democrats and their complicity in what was going on. They did not talk about, like, the vital role that Congress plays. They did not talk about the vital role that the Republicans in the House played in passing this aid package. All of the criticism with respect to Israel and Gaza was focused and centered on Biden and Kamala.
But why? Why do you think?
The answer to that question for me is that I think that they were completely misguided. I think they made a mistake.
Wait.
What was the question again?
They did not talk about, like, the vital role that Congress plays. They did not talk about the vital role that the Republicans in the House played in passing this aid package. All of the criticism with respect to Israel and Gaza was focused and centered on Biden and Kamala.
But why? Why do you think?
The answer to that question for me is that I think that they were completely misguided. I think they made a mistake.
4 years coming. Okay.
Wait, the activists by pressuring the Joe Biden's administration?
Yeah, I don't think that they were. I don't think that they were properly. I don't think that they. I think their motivation was to, like, shift the party platform that Kamala was running on. So they specifically they wanted her to run on, like, an arms embargo or something like that. So they had political goals, but in doing so, and she sets up the stage here. So, like, she sets up the sort of intractable nature of what was happening at the time, and then she sets up their, like, specific methods, like demanding a one-state solution. And then when you have a situation where, like, hundreds of videos of unspeakable violence are showing up on your feed every day, and all these activist groups are talking about is the Democrats' complicity in it, they don't it sets up a situation where a lot of these people don't properly, number one, acknowledge the Republic.
Straight Array is way out of her depth on this one. Hutch knows way too much. Hutch is in the meta of the meta. Okay, it's fucking Jover, dude. Hutch is absolutely correct.
Role and what was happening in Gaza, and number two, it's shifting them away from the emphasis on how bad Trump is going to be. That was what she was sort of, like, speaking to in that post.
Well, because Trump's not the president yet.
Well,
no, she. What?
He was a candidate for president, right? So, like, if
I'm a voter for the Democratic Party, I'm going to spend more time attempting to leverage my vote within that party than I would attempting to leverage it, like, with a Republican base politician group or whatever, because I can't even say to that person, yeah, I'm part of your coalition, or I'm a constituent of yours, that's why you should listen to me. It's like with the Democrats, these people are Democratic voters, or they could potentially be Democratic voters, and in some cases, again, they supported him or whatever. So, and given that it's Biden's administration, it makes sense to me that is where the effort is currently.
But the role of the Congress the role of the Congress in appropriating these funds is just as crucial as Biden's role in like dispersing those funds. Like it's a co-equal branch of government. They like the Congress are the ones that determine what amount of aid gets sent, what amount of like money gets sent. Like they have just as big of a role to play in this situation as Biden did. So like, let me just like say, like, imagine someone who's like 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're just getting interested in.
Yeah, like with this blaming Biden shit is crazy to me because it's always Congress that's supposed to have more power than the president. Like that's the entire point of like why the Republicans right now are trying to come up with ways to empower Trump, because Trump is absolutely fucking unhinged and he can do whatever the fuck they want, right? So yeah, like of course, like what exactly is the point? Like fuck me, dude. Yeah, it is in fact Congress can get things done. You can call Congress members to get things done. But everyone likes to rag on Biden just because he's old.
Politics, and their entire media diet is like, you know, Hassan and Vanguard and a lot of people that were sort of like Mike from PA or whatever, like people who are like singularly focused on the Democrats' complicity and what's going on in Gaza. And then from that media diet, all this person is exposed to is Democratic complicity, Democratic complicity, Democratic complicity. No, there's no mention of Mike Johnson. There's no mention of how much worse Donald Trump is going to be. Can you imagine that like a lot of people in that spot probably felt apathetic and felt like they didn't have a meaningful choice, even though Donald Trump has been like literally 100 times worse?
Yes, but I think that's rational because I don't think that you can just let the administration that's currently in charge off the hook from holding them accountable, because there's always going to be the future evil of Republicans. That always has to be factored in, and that's something that should be mentioned. If I could make recommendations.
Also, yeah, like, can you imagine still trying to focus on it? Because I see, okay, the problem is that I see, like, people like fucking Hassan and fucking Vash, okay? Lolly Horse Vash and, like, fucking, totally didn't fucking fuck around in a fucking German brothel where it got raided for sex trafficking Hassan, okay? Where, like, essentially, all they talk about is how it's the fucking Democrats' fault. Like, what the fuck? Do you even care about our country anymore, dude? They aren't in fucking power. They can't do shit. What are you talking about? Shouldn't you be, like, talking about how bad the fucking Republicans... I mean, they do, okay? They do talk about how bad the Republicans are, but, like, they always point the blame at the Democrats, okay, in the end. They don't. They never, like, actually say, yeah, the core of the issue is the Republicans, or, like, whatever. It's very clear that they're very negative about the Democrats and just completely, like, hates them on every single, like, possible level. It's cringe.
To those creators, it's like when talking about this, it would be irresponsible to leave that out because he's a serious contender for the president in just a few months. So don't leave it out of the discussion. But I also don't think that it should undermine or make people's criticisms be any less intense, you know, and the pressure that they decide to put on it. Because I guess, like, is there any issue that you agree on Republicans with? Any single one?
True.
Nothing comes to mind. I'm
guns, gun rights or something.
Well, I don't think the gun.
Or like anti-choice or something.
No, literally not a single thing. I cannot think of a single thing.
I struggle to think of something as well, but let's say that I agree with Democrats on absolutely everything except the one thing is like the Second Amendment, right? And in the context of some like school shooting or something like that, there's a really big ongoing public conversation and national debate about what direction we're going to take gun reform laws in, right? And you've got like Democrats in charge or like you have Republicans in charge or something like that. And people don't like it or like don't like the policy that they're going for. But then people from their party say like, but you should just be criticizing the Democrats because think about the future. I know you don't like what Republicans are proposing, but think about like the future evil that a Democratic administration could bring in if they were in charge right now during this crisis. And it's more important for you to think about that future harm instead of put pressure and act now with urgency at the current administration that's at the helm of all of this and the party that is the one that's like dictating the policy. It just seems irrational to me.
I don't think it's irrational to point out the co-equal branches of government. I don't think it's irrational to point out that this is
irrational to point it out, but to say that there ought to be more emphasis on like things that, like future potential harms or whatever that have not yet materialized, but there's a chance to, because Trump hadn't become the president yet, and shift that away from people holding current elected leaders accountable.
Wait, why is that irrational though? Like if I went to voters, if I had a crystal ball and I could see into the future, would it be irrational for me to go to, someone who is maybe thinking about not voting because they're pissed at Democrats about Gaza? Would it be irrational for me to tell them, like, hey, if Trump wins, 14 million people around the world are going to die from USAID cuts. So I understand that Gaza is really important, but this is a holistic election that has thousands of effects, and I think that you should consider that. Would that be irrational for me to do that?
No.
Then I don't.
I made that pitch to people, but like I guess I wouldn't do it in that way though, because I did hear you bring this up, and I think that this is like, okay, then I'll do this hypothetical then, because this is a better one. You support Democrats on everything except, let's pretend that the Democrats are the ones that always want to cut USAID, right? And you're going to vote for them in spite of that. And we have the same figures, okay? Those researchers from the Lancet are also saying that if the Democrats cut USAID like they say they want to, then 14 million people die by 2030, just a few years or whatever. And somebody says to you, like, I know you support Democrats or whatever, but think of those 14 million people. What would you say to them?
I would think about
Like,
the 14 million people.
Would you consider voting for a Republican?
If I thought that millions of people, like less people would die if I voted for a Republican, I would consider voting for a Republican. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, then yeah, sure, that's fine. What? Wait. She needs to stop cooking ASAP, okay? She is not. She thinks that she's cooking. She is not cooking right now.
Democrats are the same on every other. You said you can't even think of a single thing you agree with Republicans on. But in this hypothetical, Democrats have the exact same platform. So that means you agree with them on gun reform. That means healthcare. That means you agree with them on tax bills and budgets and capital management, like all of that. Just the one thing is the USAID cut. You would actually consider switching to voting for Republicans.
Yes.
Because of that one policy.
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
Why?
of course. Because a fundamental principle of like my political engagement is harm reduction. Like I take the trolley problem seriously. And so if I thought that
problem seriously, but like there's other things besides just that to factor in if we're making these sorts of moral calculuses, and it just becomes a numbers game, because then from there it's like, but those Republicans also want to cut Medicaid, and Medicaid, that's going to kick tens of millions of people off of it as well.
14 million people trolley problem, dude. When it comes to, I can actually kind of respect fuck. I think I need to think about that for a moment, because the thing is that I actually would not place the American people below 14 million people outside of the United States. I'm not sure if I would do that. I don't know if I'm actually gonna do that. Like seriously. Because I'm here thinking like, oh, I'm not gonna lie, gotta look out for ourselves, you know? But I get Hutch's
How
view.
is that a greater harm than the USAID cuts? Is it worse to be more concerned about Americans than people abroad or whatever dying from neglect versus like, you know?
Okay.
This
Can I spin the question around on you, but change it a little bit?
Sure.
He never said he would 100% switch parties, but he would consider it. Oh, then yeah, sure, I would consider it. Yeah, sure. I agree with Hutch then. Yeah, I remember now. Yes, he said I would consider it. Yeah, that's true.
Sure.
If you knew that by voting for a Republican, you could prevent 4 billion people from dying, would you vote for the Republican?
It would depend on what Democrats are proposing. I would need to know.
What?
Let's say the Democrats let's say the Democrats platform was fucking like literally 100% what you want, but 4 billion people would die. Would you still vote for the Democrat?
And it's like passively because of the same way the USAID cuts.
Yeah, we'll just say yeah.
I guess I would consider it at that point, but again, like
Okay.
it comes down to, but I don't
Okay. Consider or yeah, on God for sure. I don't.
think it's comparable with what you're saying entirely, because
Well,
you
you're
also have to
Also, I fear that they're straying from the point a little bit. No, I fear that they're kind of straying from the point. Like they were originally talking about Contrapoints, like fucking thing, right? Like, fuck, because we're not talking about that jazz, you know.
factor in that you would be voting for a party that's anti-vax, that doesn't think climate change is real,